The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the U.S. hit 1 million Tuesday. That number is expected to keep rising. Meanwhile, states across the country are starting to reopen. 21 states have now eased restrictions designed to stop the spread of the coronavirus. At the White House earlier, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis met with President Trump. DeSantis says he will announce plans Wednesday to reopen his state.
I'm going to make an announcement tomorrow, but I think that for Florida, going from where we are now to phase one is not a very a big leap. I think that we'll be able to be a small step for us, but we're going to approach it in a very measured, thoughtful, and data-driven way. The overall numbers of people who are seeking testing is not currently beyond our capacity. So we're going to have a lot more capacity going forward, but we still, right now, are able to meet the current demand.
So you actually have more testing than you have demand?
Right now, yep.
It's a fantastic thing.
The White House is facing questions about new national testing guidelines released Monday. The federal government will supply enough test kits for each state to screen 2% of its population per month. But it also refers to the federal government as, quote, the supplier of last resort. Even with rigorous testing plans in place, the nation's top health advisors are urging caution as states look to restart their economies.
If we are unsuccessful or prematurely try to open up and we have additional outbreaks that are out of control, it could be much more than that. It could be a rebound to get us right back in the same boat that we were in a few weeks ago. So that's why we've really got to be careful and very circumspect as we go from a lockdown to a gradual rolling re-entry into some sort of normality.
Jeff Mason joins me now. He is a White House correspondent for Reuters. Hi, Jeff. Busy day for you. You were at that event in the Oval Office with the president and Governor DeSantis, and then later at that event in the East Room. And you asked the president there about an executive order in order to use the Defense Production Act to force meat processing plants to stay open. Why is the president taking that step?
Well, it's good to be with you, Elaine. And he's doing that because the White House is really concerned that the meatpacking industry and the these processing plants that have been hit so hard by coronavirus cases will stay shut down for a while, and then have a huge impact on the food supply. So the president is signing this order that essentially will use the Defense Production Act to order them to stay open and declare them an essential business and protect the food supply. Now, that is something that the companies may welcome because they're facing quite a bit of criticism, but the unions so far have not. A reaction from some of the unions has been the president should be working to ensure that workers at these plants have the personal protective equipment that they need instead of using this authority to keep the plants open.
Well, as we mentioned, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is set to announce reopening plans Wednesday. More than 20 states have some form of a reopening plan in place. Now, earlier the president said that he expects the economy to come back very fast, but that seems to contradict with what some of his top economic advisors are saying. What is the sense, Jeff, in the White House about how quickly the economy will pick up as states reopen?
Well, you're absolutely right to say that the president is putting on a very optimistic tone about this. He's said a couple times today that he expects the fourth quarter, which coincidentally is also includes November when he'll be in a race against Joe Biden to be reelected, that the fourth quarter will be a good one and that next year will be good, that the third quarter will be more of a transition period. So yes, he thinks things are going to move quickly, but you're absolutely right to say as well that other advisors are sort of giving a more cautionary tone. I mean, the fact that there are so many people now on the unemployment rolls, that just doesn't go away quickly. And this reopening process, despite the fact that it is not starting with a big bang, which were the words that the president used at one point to describe how the economy would reopen. Instead, it's starting in a phased-in approach, and that's in fact the approach that the White House coronavirus task force has encouraged states to follow.
I want to ask about another claim. During his meeting with Governor DeSantis, the president said that Dr. Anthony Fauci and other top health experts said the coronavirus would be no problem and blow over back in January and February. What do we know about what Dr. Fauci and other public health experts said in that time frame?
Well, I certainly don't recall anyone saying that it would blow over. And the president, of course, has faced a lot of criticism for some of the rhetoric he used in the early days of this virus, playing it down, comparing it to a flu. Also, talking about not wanting people with coronavirus cases to get off of a cruise ship because he didn't want it to increase the numbers. But I think all that said, when we look back at how all U.S. officials were treating this in the early days, in the same way that President Trump did, the urgency is different. The urgency certainly increased as the breadth and the scope of this virus became clearer and clearer. And I'm sure that the president, when he said that, he can probably find some clips where either Dr. Fauci or others would say something that he also felt was in line with what he was saying.
And Jeff, do we know what role the president's top health advisors are currently playing with respect to some of these decisions and blueprints that are being drawn up? Are these health advisors starting to take a back seat to some of the president's economic advisors?
Well, it's a fair question, and there was a lot of concern about that prior to their last issuing of new guidelines for how states should reopen. But it was really the health professionals who designed those guidelines. Dr. Birx, Dr. Fauci played a huge role in setting that out. Now, the fact that some states are reopening perhaps faster than some either in the White House or in the public would like to see is sort of a different issue. I think that the White House folks, certainly the medical professionals, want to see them following the phased-in approach that the task force proposed, and I think they will continue to play a huge role. Now, are economic advisors also playing a role? For sure, and it's critical for the president to get the economy moving again, both for himself politically, but also for the health of the economic health of the country and all the people who've been hurt by this so much. But I at least my reporting so far is not showing that that means the medical professionals are taking the back seat. Is there some tension there occasionally? Yes, but that doesn't mean that the econ advisors or that part of the White House and that part of the task force is getting more play.
What about communication strategy here, Jeff? We know that the president has been urged by his advisors and allies to scale back on these daily task force briefings. It was interesting to see this event in the East Room. It was interesting to see yesterday's event, not a task force briefing, but a quote-unquote news conference in the Rose Garden. Is there a sense that the president is going to be following this advice to kind of pull back from what we had regularly come to expect almost every day?
Oh, yeah, they were happening every day. I think that there is a shift here. I don't know how long that shift will last, but he didn't hold a briefing at all over the weekend. That's the first time in a while, neither Saturday nor Sunday. And yes, today he ended up not doing a press conference, but did take questions 2 times, both in the Oval Office and in the East Room. So I think he's going to remain accessible. I think that the president, if anything, is someone who knows how to keep his quotes in the news and to remain a part of the conversation. So whether that ends up being in what has become the more traditional format of the briefing room or whether it's in some of these other events that they do, I guess we'll see. The one thing I would add to that conversation is I spoke to one advisor last week who said, as long as Governor Cuomo in New York continues to do daily briefings, President Trump is probably going to want to do them too.
Interesting, very interesting. All right, well, let me ask you about another topic here. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer announced Tuesday the House will not go back into session next week as planned. And that news led the president to say this about Democrats earlier. Let's listen.
Steny Hoyer has just announced that the House will not come back, given that D.C. still has a stay-at-home order. Is that a good move, wise move, or a bad move? What do you think?
The Democrats, they don't want to come back. They don't want to come back. I think they should be back here, but they don't. They're enjoying their vacation. And they shouldn't
Think
be.
they're
This is a
enjoying
time,
vacation?
yeah, I think they are. I think they are. If you
think this
look
is
at
a
Nancy
vacation.
Pelosi eating ice cream on late night television, yeah, I think they probably are. They're having a good time. I think they should be back. I think they should all come back and we should work on this together.
So, Jeff, does that kind of rhetoric impact the White House's ability to get support from congressional Democrats on things like a Phase 4 stimulus package?
Well, that kind of rhetoric is not new from the president. He's been critical of Democrats for a long time. So I can't speak for lawmakers on Capitol Hill in terms of how they interpret that. But I suspect there may be some eye rolls and just moving on. But who knows? I mean, he does need both parties' support. And he has, in fact, been talking about wanting to do an infrastructure package that he seems to have more support from the Democratic side of the aisle for that than he does on the Republican side. So, yes, you're certainly right to say that he needs to get support from both sides. I don't know if a flippant comment like that today will move the needle, only because it's a kind of thing he says a lot.
Right. You have to wonder, though, in this environment where you have millions of Americans who are at home because they have to be for health concerns, to hear the word vacation might not resonate with some of those people. All right, Jeff Mason coming to us from what looks like the Reuters White House booth. Is that right, Jeff?
It is. This is the Reuters White House booth, as glamorous as it is here at the White House.
Okay, excellent. Yes, I know it's been a busy day for you. Jeff Mason, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Really appreciate it. Good to see you.
My pleasure. You too.